What's going on, guys? So today we're back with another Pokemon Masters video, and today we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different. These are top 5 things that I would consider kind of like the top 5 tips for intermediate players. These are kind of tips for someone who's been playing for a little bit, understands the basics of the combat system, how the game works, and kind of wants to expand their knowledge just a little bit further. The first tip that we're going to go over is gear. So gear can actually be a very powerful tool when you need a little extra oomph out of your team. So the basic concept of gear is that you have a typing, a level, a stage, a set, and a rarity. Shown on the screen is an example with all of these things actually clearly marked for you. So typing is basically just the same as Pokemon types. Level, you can actually have a level of gear between 1 and 15. The stage will actually determine your level cap. When you don't have any stages cleared, your level cap is 3. At the first stage, your level cap is 6, the second one is 9, the third one is 12, and the last one after you unlock all stages is 15. To unlock these stages, you actually have to give this certain piece of gear a duplicate of itself regardless of stages. Basically, to get a max level piece of gear, you would need to clear all the stages, and that basically means that in total you need 5 copies of the gear, and then you can basically have a level 15. Set is either bracelet, bandana, or pin. Bracelets are actually going to be boosting your physical attack. Bandanas actually boost your special attack, and pins will actually boost HP. And then lastly, rarity is signified by the stars. Currently, as of this recording, we only have 1 and 2 star gear. There are currently no gears that will boost defense, special defense, or speed. I'm assuming that they will make their debut at some point in this game. So the power of gear comes from when you get into the 2-star rarities and you max out that level. For example, a 2-star maxed out rarity bandana will boost a Pokemon of the same type by 40. That's 40 stat points towards your base stats of your Pokemon. That's actually pretty powerful. Both bracelets and bandanas will boost Pokemon of the same type by the same amount, but a pin can actually boost by 50 at level 15 for a 2-star gear. The main difference between the rarity of the gear is how much your stats will be boosted. A maxed out 1-star gear will get half of the amount versus the 2-star gears. So that's quite a jump. It is actually also worth mentioning that because you are using a specific type of gear, if you have a Pokemon on your team that is not the same type, so let's say that you have Mewtwo on your team, but you also have Howl on the team. Mewtwo will get the full benefit of the same typing out of those gears. If he has a 2-star fully maxed out bandana, he will get 40 stat points added to his special attack. Howl, because he is not the same type though, will actually only get half of that, so he will get 20 added to his. So you kind of have to play around if you're gonna put a special attacker on the team, a physical attacker on a team, and a tank. It kind of works out pretty nice. But if you're running multiple special attackers and 1 tank, and they're all 3 different typings, you kind of have to play to whichever one's best strengths are. So to get these pieces of gear, you're going to have to get far enough in the story to unlock a special training mission called Get Stronger with Gear, which actually does unlock after you complete Chapter 18 in the co-op section on hard difficulty. From there, you'll start to be able to get 1-star gear from all of the co-op story missions at their highest difficulty, which right now is very hard, but to obtain 2-star gear, though it's a little different, you'll actually have to do EX challenges on very hard to get those. These can be a little challenging to get, but they can help out on some Pokemon where they just kind of need a little extra bulk or maybe some attack or special attack to really help one-shot something. In any case, it could be a turn faster, which is a huge time saver if you're trying to grind. So the second tip that we're going to go over is actually handling unity attacks. Really quick, we're going to explain what unity attacks are, and then we'll kind of get into why I think they're kind of important. So unity attacks in co-op are basically just a powerful move that can do up to 3 times super effective damage in the right circumstances. These attacks are performed by filling up the unity attack gauge, which happens turn after turn as you perform attacks. Based on the amount of bar that a move costs, you will get credit towards this unity gauge equal to the bars that you used. If all 3 players can actually attack in succession before the enemy disrupts this unity gauge at the bottom, you will actually get a Unity bonus for a few seconds. While this bonus is active, you actually get +1 to all of the attacks that you're doing during this Unity bonus. So instead, like let's say you're running Mewtwo and you use Psychic up against something, you're actually going to get 4 bars worth of credit towards your Unity attack rather than only 3. So you can actually get a Unity bonus rather early in the match because most of the time the AI is set to buff up its team in its first turn. So if you and your other 2 teammates can actually use attacks rather quickly, you can usually get out a quick Unity bonus rather fast, but then you kind of have to buff up, so you kind of have to play around with it in certain scenarios. So once the gauge is filled, the move queue is cleared and a Unity attack is performed. Then a screen will appear asking you to choose a sync pair to perform this attack. You don't have but a quick second or 2 to really lock this in, so you kind of got to think fast, but usually you'll want to maximize damage by choosing a sync pair that will be super effective. There are special cases where you wouldn't want to choose the super effective sync pair, but we'll get to that in a minute. Once that Unity attack goes through, this is a unique spot. Since the move queue was actually cleared earlier, you have a split second to queue up a move before any other sync pair. This is important because there are many times where if you can time the Unity attack to fire while the enemy has a sync move queued, you can actually sneak in another move, pending that you do have the bar to do so, and possibly feint the enemy sync pair before they can even queue up that sync move again, which can come in extremely handy. The third thing that we're going to go over is actually bulk. So in the top 5 tips for beginners video, I did touch on bulk briefly, but rather than just saying that Rosa and Superior are the bulkiest sync pair, let's actually go over how it's calculated and kind of why it's important. So first thing is that there is actually a formula for calculating bulk. Personally, I have not tested this formula in depth by any means, and there are a couple of conflicting formulas here. First one is on GamePress, they claim that the formula is HP divided by 2.75 plus your defense plus your special defense. And that's what I ran with for the longest time, but some people in the community Discord have ran some more tests and figured out that the formula is closer to a HP divided by 2.5 rather than 2.75 plus defense plus special defense. Either way, it's a start. So what this means is a Pokemon that has a high combination of HP, defense, and special defense generally end up being pretty bulky. So the reason that this is important is because in solo stages, the AI will always target the bulkiest sync pair on your team. Unless there are certain cases like Acerola has a move that makes the AI target her specifically. Glacia also has that in her arsenal as well. But up until recently though, Rosa and Superior were the bulkiest sync pair, but they've slowly kind of been dethroned, and you know, they're probably going to get dethroned even further as time goes on because power creep is real. The fourth thing that I actually want to talk about here is aggro. So aggro is a term that people in the community use to signify who the AI is targeting. In solo stages, this is usually determined by the bulkiest sync pair on your team, just like we talked about. In co-op though, this is different. The AI will actually cycle through each sync pair every 2 to 4 turns. And as far as I understand it, it chooses a random sync pair at the beginning of the battle and it just kind of cycles through from there as normal. Something interesting about aggro though is that when any sync pair performs a sync move in co-op, that sync move fires, and then afterwards that sync move will instantly draw the aggro from the AI. Basically meaning that the AI is now going to start targeting that sync pair. The reason that this is important is because you can set up in very interesting ways where you can kind of save an ally by drawing aggro away from them when there's bad things coming to them. Let's take an example in a co-op match where 2 players throw out a sync move ready emote. One of those sync pairs is Dusclops and the other one is a Zebstrika. Based on our formula, Dusclops is way more bulky than Zebstrika. The way the Phoebe player could take some heat off of the Zebstrika is to wait until it queues up its sync move. Then queue up Dusclops' sync move, and that way, when things pan out, both sync moves will fire back to back. Zebstrika first and then Dusclops. Because Dusclops was the first one, it will draw aggro away from the Zebstrika and prevent it from being the target of any single targeting attack. which can actually be really helpful in saving some allies. The last one that I really want to talk about is kind of a blanket statement of awareness in co-op. This just may come with you as you get more familiar with the system, but just in general, I'm talking about things like paying attention to emotes in co-op, paying attention to how sync moves fall, watching for the enemy sync move, or targeting the right Pokemon. And there are a ton of things to watch out for in co-op, and each one can have a drastic effect on outcomes. So let's actually go over a couple of these just to kind of give you some ideas on what I'm talking about. So paying attention to emotes is like, if you notice your teammate is saying sync move ready, they could actually be crying out for help so that you can pull aggro, just like we just talked about. If they're saying attack together, they may be asking you to focus on one specific Pokemon or trying to fill that unity gauge for a unity bonus. We don't have a ton of ways to communicate as is, but there are some decent context clues from what we do have. Paying attention to how the sync move falls, this is just kind of what we were just talking about with aggro, being on the lookout for who does their sync move first and try to make sure when things start pulling aggro, you try to protect your main damage dealers. A very common occurrence that I see is when you have a Lycanroc on your team and you're not actually controlling the Lycanroc, but let's say you're controlling Phoebe, just for example. When Lycanroc fires off its sync move, if it just does it willy-nilly, it's kind of asking for the aggro at that point. Lycanroc can be kind of frail, especially if it's using hard as diamonds and it drops its special defense. But either way, if it just uses it willy-nilly, that's on it. But if it's saying, hey, sync move is ready, sync move is ready, once it fires off that sync move, it's trying to say, hey, I'm going to be using this so I know I'll pull aggro. Maybe you could use yours in succession so that we can, maybe keep the aggro off of me, because Stone Edge is generally just going to do a ton of damage either way. Just remember that you can maximize a ton of damage by manipulating the aggro from the AI. Watching for enemy sync moves is kind of like, this just kind of comes back to maneuvering the stage to maximize your potential. We touched a little bit on this before, but if a unity attack is firing right before an enemy is going to be using a sync move, it may be better to not switch into a unit that has a high damage potential but is frail. So because of the way that things work, you may not have time to switch if you're not fast enough. Another thing is buffing up yourself or your teammates right before that enemy sync move. Same as in solo stages, the enemy sync move will actually drop your stats, unless you carry a passive called Impervious, back to normal. Be careful when you're buffing up to get the most out of those buffs and not just forfeit them when the enemy uses their sync move. And the last thing here is targeting the right Pokemon. This is just something that I see happening sometimes, and I myself am completely at fault as well. Unless you've played the stage before, you may not know what to expect. Think back to the Mewtwo event. Just in case you didn't get to participate in that event though, one of the co-op stages had a Solrock and Lunatone on the outsides with Mewtwo in the center. If you didn't feint the Solrock or Lunatone fast enough, after an X amount of turns, they would actually use Explosion very close in succession. This is a huge disruption to your team, as it almost always feinted your Pokemon you had out. This is just one example, but there are plenty of others, and once you kind of get the hang of certain stages, you kind of know what to target, whether it's a Pokemon that can heal the enemy or a Pokemon that just likes to put you to sleep. So as usual, with every single video that we do on the channel here, I am going to do a Sync Pair Scout. And I've said it basically all month long at this point, that I'm not going to mess with Grimsley. By the time this video comes out, it looks like it's going to come out towards the end of the month, but as of recording, as you can see, we still do have the Grimsley banner. Since I did not choose Grimsley in that guaranteed sync pair banner thing, the 5-star one, I am going to still throw a little bit of gem at him. I don't know how much more I can mentally take of this, but if you're going to summon along with me, we're going to go in 1, 2, 3. So no crazy animation. Looking like we're gonna get the standard stuff here. Can we get a decent antenna? Nope. So we're looking for decent doors. What kind of doors do we get? Just 3-star doors, and it is a Cheryl. So that is actually gonna be it for this video, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you have any tips that you would be giving me? Because I don't consider myself necessarily an advanced player. I'm kind of just like an intermediate is kind of where I like to consider myself. So if you have any tips that I didn't go over in this video, if you have any tips that you've personally found out and would like to, tell everybody, definitely leave them down in the comments below, because I'd be super ecstatic to read through them. But other than that, that is actually going to be it. Thank you guys for hanging out. I'm going to go ahead and head out, and I will catch you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Always remember that if you like to like videos, you could do that, but if you don't, you could be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below about the video. I do highly appreciate you guys watching. If you guys want to support me in any way, there are several links down in the description for Patreon, joining the community here on YouTube, or even just directly PayPal if that's your thing. I greatly appreciate everyone's name that's on screen, as you guys have showed some sort of support outside of just viewing the videos, and I thank you guys. You don't understand from the bottom of my heart. So until our next video, guys, I will catch you then.